Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 28th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery with the air mass characteristics overlaid, and you can see that subtropical and tropical air mass being brought up with this atmospheric river activity into the Pacific Northwest. However, we are getting a bit of a break from some of the precipitation during the day today with some warm temperatures out there. I even see the sun out there this morning, so enjoy that nice treat because we're going to get some more rainfall rolling in here as we go on in towards next week, and then potentially a pattern change after that. We'll dive into some of those details as we go through the video here today. And as you can see, some of this precip is moving across some of eastern Oregon, Washington, and on into the Idaho Panhandle. But we are getting that break I mentioned. And some of this precip will be starting up, though, again, as we go today across Vancouver Island and some of the Olympic Mountains here. But it's going to kind of be a pretty sharp cutoff here in some of that precipitation. And you can kind of see this pretty robust looking low pressure center here. This is going to continue to feed some of this moisture into our region here. Now, taking a look, there are some hydraulic concerns here across some of western Washington, the Cascades. You know, the freezing levels are pretty high, and we dropped some pretty good rainfall amounts yesterday. There's some avalanche warnings out there as well. And they do talk about here the snow levels rise above 7,000 feet through this period, and there could be some nuisance flooding out there. Not a huge dynamic flooding situation here for western Washington or western Oregon. And you can see here we've got the avalanche warning here across the north central Cascades. So heads up, you're headed off to the backcountry here because there's some pretty high avalanche danger out there and some considerable for other portions of Washington, Oregon, Cascades. And it does talk about those avalanche conditions out there, and it talks about the mountains picking up over 2 inches of rain overnight with heavy rainfall continuing into some of the morning hours as that moved on. And avoid all avalanche terrain and put plenty of space between yourself and any steep terrain above you. Now, looking at the temperatures coming up, I think the record high for today, I believe, we'll look at it here in a second, but it's 57 for Seattle, so we do have a decent chance of breaking that record high today. In some other areas, Olympia set its record high yesterday also. And then look at tomorrow. Nice warm temperatures here across much of BC and western Washington and Oregon. Seattle maybe get to 62 degrees. And another fairly warm day on Tuesday before we start to bring that next frontal system in here and we get that pattern change going. And as you see, if we head off to the end of next week here, you can see some of these temperatures dropping back down to the 40s and the mid 40s as we get some much chillier air here into the Pacific Northwest. More on that here at the end of the video. This is looking at Seattle, Tacoma, and I want to kind of show you this here. This is daily high and low temperature, but check it out. We could break that record today and maybe even tomorrow as well with 60, 61 before we start that gradual cool down and then some cooler air arriving through the extended. And now if we look here, the record high today, yes, it is 57, and tomorrow it is 60. So we do have a chance to break record high temperatures here for today and tomorrow. We'll be sure to watch that, and I'll probably update that on social media. Seattle Weather Guy, if you want to follow me on Twitter or X or whatever it's called nowadays. Now looking at the European, this is last night's run, 100-meter wind speed. So as we go through the day today, you can see the next storm system arriving. This will be bringing that precipitation as we go through the afternoon into the Vancouver Island area, possibly clipping some of the Olympic Mountains here and some of western BC. And you can see that low pressure center move up towards Haida Gwaii there. Some windy conditions for them. And then some windy conditions could be had here also as we go through Monday afternoon for some of the Oregon coast. And then as we go through the nighttime hours here, you can see giving us a nice kick here across the northwest interior. Some of the coastal areas in Vancouver Island getting a nice slug of wind here as well as we go on in through Monday afternoon, Monday evening, let's call it, then Monday night as that system moves through. And then we get the finale here with this deep low pressure center here. It's going to cast a pretty strong frontal system across the region. Deep low pressure center up here. Some locally windy conditions up and down the coastline also can be had with that. But looking at Quillia, you can kind of see that as we go through Monday night, kind of kicking things up. The control run actually had 52 miles per hour. And then that next system as we go on in through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, some gusts up in the mid 40s are showing up for some of the Washington coast. And this is looking at Astoria. Lesser amounts the further south you go, showing up in the ensembles here for the European. And this is Whidbey Island. Also looking at Monday night as well. Look at that 47 miles per hour. Nothing to sneeze at there. And Seattle, Tacoma, lesser winds here. And mainly probably as we go on in through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, some blustery winds out there, but nothing crazy. No windstorm incoming. Now, this is looking at the GFS. This is current, and as we saw in the infrared satellite imagery, we had that deep low pressure center there and steering that next atmospheric river into the Vancouver Island area. Bounces around here as we go on in through the Tuesday morning time frame, and then this really deep low. This is going to look great on the infrared satellite imagery. Very deep low pressure center here, 965, maybe even lower millibar low. spreading the last of that frontal system here through the Pacific Northwest, and then the storm track kind of takes aim at California for a few days, but we're going to be trying to move some cooler air down into the Pacific Northwest here as well. And again, we'll look at that towards the end of the video, but you can kind of see it here as well. This is the Whistler, and you're looking at up towards about 1,300 meters right there. You can see the warm air associated with the atmospheric river, and then the crash that comes as we go on in through Friday morning as the much colder air arrives. This is Crystal Mountain, making our way down the Cascades of Washington. You can see the crash coming Thursday night into Friday morning, and Mount Hood, also the big crash after some very warm air up across some of the Cascades of Washington and Oregon. Now, looking at total precipitation in inches, this is the National Blend of Models. This is hot off the press, as you can see Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia here. And if we put this into motion, you can see that's going to start kicking up here again across Vancouver Island. Another intense bout of rainfall or two still on the way, as you can see. And you can notice that as we go into tomorrow morning, really not much for the Vancouver metro area or Seattle or Portland here. And you can see that atmospheric river hanging out again off to the west. And then as we go on in through Wednesday, you'll see that next frontal system start to make its through Wednesday night and on in through Thursday and really take aim at California there. But you can see some really big rainfall amounts here, maybe up over a foot locally here across some of the Vancouver Island and southwest BC. But as you see, if we scroll out here, that's not that much rain for Seattle and Portland coming up here. So not too bad, but the Cascades will be getting higher amounts, as you can see. Now, looking at snow depth in centimeters, you can see British Columbia is here, and you can see Vancouver Island, the Olympic Mountains, and the Cascades. And again, as I've been mentioned in the last few days, we're going to be going the wrong way here. We're kind of impacting that snowpack across some of Vancouver Island as we go on in towards next week. But then we start to bring some cooler air down in here through the extended. So hopefully we can rebuild what we're losing here as these very warm temperatures dominate a lot of the Pacific Northwest. Now, you guys might be hearing some chatter about a cooler pattern coming up, and I've talked about it a little bit here, but we'll look at that Arctic air. You can see some very cold air right now over Alaska and the very warm air streaming up into the Pacific Northwest with our atmospheric river activity. And then we get that kicker system here as we go through Thursday morning, and then we start to spread some of this Arctic air across the open ocean here in the Gulf of Alaska, Pacific Ocean, and maybe all the way down into California here. And again, depends on how this comes in. You could get, the snow levels are definitely going to drop here, but we're not talking about significant snowfall for, the Vancouver metro or Seattle or Portland out of this scenario. You really need the Arctic air to be much more robust and sink down across British Columbia and take a shorter track back in to some of the western Washington, Oregon to really get a better chance for some lower elevation snowfall. So we're not looking, I don't see any kind of Arctic outbreak in our future right now, but it does look like a pattern change with some colder air and some lower snow levels. And if things line up just right, you might bring some down to the higher hills or the foothill areas, but nothing worth worrying about too much as far as widespread snow potential at this point. This is looking at the European ensemble mean, 850 millibars, again, 5,000 feet. There's Alaska, and this is kind of comparing yesterday afternoon versus yesterday morning. We'll put this into motion. You can see the warm air from our systems, and then you see that cooler air trying to make its way down a little bit here. And if things line up just right, we might get some lower snow elevations out of this. But right now, not looking at any kind of Arctic air outbreak into the Pacific Northwest. Things can still change, but right now the signal is not strong. And I kind of caution you guys of this. You might start seeing this showing up in your smartphone here as you go on in towards next weekend. Some of these temperatures dropping down into the mid-20s. So if you start seeing that, don't get too worried about that yet. Stick with me here and check back daily. We'll go over these temperatures and we'll iron out some of these extended model details here. So don't be concerned if you see that start to show up in your smartphone. This is Vancouver International as well. As we go through the extended, you can see some chillier air showing up there. Portland also kind of showing some of those lower temperatures there as we go through the extended. But do not get caught up in this just yet. This is way out there, and as you saw, it is not a strong signal. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station, click on that link down below to save 10% off. It's all solar powered and wireless. I highly recommend this weather station. It's so fun to watch on your smartphone. Stores all that data for you there also. It's even got a lightning detection system with it as well. So anyway, yeah, yeah, we'll continue to break things down day by day. Get out there and enjoy the weather today across western Washington, some of BC, western Oregon, eastern Washington. That rain's going to be ending here, and nice warm temperatures. I mean, it's going to feel like spring out there for a lot of areas because that rain's going to return here over the next few days. We still have a couple big storm systems to go, and then we'll continue to watch that pattern change potential off through the extended forecast on a daily basis here. So anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.